Now I'm going to work with something else. We saw generating ideas. I think I have something that will be interesting enough for me to work on my song. So I'm going to dive in samples. And I have here a channel. I'm going to put some samples in here. I'm collecting a lot of sounds from different places. I buy loops as well. And you know, as a starter, sometimes it can be really interesting. So this simple loop, interesting. I like this. That's going to be really interesting. That one I know because it's already interesting as it is. So once I'm going to be working with that, that's going to be even more, I don't know, like engaging, I would say. So now I'm going to be starting working on how I'm going to do these things. I'm going to add a MIDI channel. And in here, I'm going to be slices to MIDI. I'm going to say that I want the transients to be delimiting this. And now I'm going to stop. What it did is it went in here, found the transients, and then sliced. So it's basically isolating these bigger sounds here, and that's going to be working an idea, and I'm going to be shaping and playing with this to see what comes out of it. I'm going to also say I don't like this. But you know, when I was playing it, I was like, oh, there's something. This melody doesn't work. That's okay, there's maybe something to do with this. So I'm going to grab this, I'm going to loop it. Turn it up a little bit. This is the gain, of course. You see the signal is louder now. How about we pitch it down? What I'm looking for when I hear something like that is I'm gonna go for the sounds that I really like. So I like this part here, not so much this. There's two things I can do. I can do exactly what I did with this one. So 5.2, I'm gonna copy it, paste it here, and I'm gonna crop it so that it only keeps the part that I like. I'm gonna change the color so I know that it's a different one than this one. And I'm gonna slice it to MIDI again. And same thing, transient. Whoops. Of course, it didn't pitch it down. Duh. So I'm gonna come back here and I'm gonna pitch it down to minus 28, sorry. I'm gonna resample it. There's always like different things that you can do. You know, I'm trying to show you like the simplest part. Now it stops. Okay, cool. So now this is going to be sliced to MIDI. There we go. And we have like these temporary percussion. I know right now it sounds like a mess. It sounds super disorganized, but that's a, you know, like I almost sometimes prefer this moment of like, where is this leading to? Like, what am I going to do with this? Because this is exactly what I told you before, is the free falling. You know, I'm free falling and then I'm going to slowly arrange it and see how it's going to take shape. So if I switch to the arranger, I'm going to see the, you know, timeline of my idea. We know that the kick is going to be playing there. If we look at Archie's track, which I'm gonna drag and drop right here. And I'm gonna come back this track. We see the structure of Archie's track, so I'm gonna put some markers just for fun, kind of like a guideline of what am I doing. These are temporary. These are just to kind of give me a sense of what kind of structure I want to work with. And from there, after that, I probably will remove these markers, but it's just, you know, an indication. And if I listen to this track, okay, so this track has a kick and percussion the whole time. And when we were talking about drafting, I'm just going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to draft it, and I'm going to bring it here, and then duplicate that until the end. I want to get something really similar to his track. Here, there's probably no kick is muted here. Not sure I'm going to do that. It's a very long break for me, but who knows. And if you listen to the pad in the background, it's a long pad. If you remember, I recorded some longer notes here. If I come back here, and then I'm gonna go get a pad. I'm gonna go back to my MIDI here, and I'm going to see how this pad's sounding, because that's what I heard in his track. It was one of the elements that I like, which is the background of the song. But of course these notes are too fast, so I'm gonna just take a 5 bar, not 5 bars, sorry. Yeah, 4 bars. This too. No. So I'm gonna come here, fold it so that I stay with the notes. Drop it here. I want to check his track to see roughly where does he start this pad. Aha, right here. Okay, so I'll start it here. It's just drafting, okay? One thing that I see is that he's using a drum kit. So I'm gonna add another MIDI, and I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna go, first of all, get the drum rack, drop it here, and go with hats. Yeah, that's good. I'm just gonna go for whatever. Sometimes I like loops like this. I'll show you why. That's going to be my hats. I'm going to color it gray so I can easily find myself. This is going to be the kick. And the hats are going to come here. And remember last time we were in 1/16, so I'm going to start with the 1/8, the simplest ones. Which one? Switch to pen. So that's the simplest one. I'm going to copy and duplicate it here. I'm going to go get this one. I'm just going to isolate one sound that I like. Okay, so this is one loop. It really gets annoying and boring after a little while, so duplicate it. Now it's a little bit longer, and I can I can start making little variations on the what we call the beat. So this is the A, this is the B. I find that music in general that has AB or percussion that has AB, might be less annoying on the long run. So we're just gonna duplicate it again. And one thing I'm gonna do is this sound is way too long. It's a bit off as well, so I'm gonna bring it here and cut it, fade out. And it's right now it's a bit what I call robotic, so I'm gonna go in the groove and I'm going to take a 65, but it has to be in 16. And where is it? 60 is gonna be enough. And I'm gonna quantize it. Velocity is good. Drop this to about 25%. Select this. So CDs, I like them, but they're a little bit too much on the grid. So I'm super nitpicky about hats, so I'm gonna move it a little bit. And now these will follow because they're selected, so you select them with this. And we have to experiment. one thing I want to check is the bassline. So he's starting with the bassline right away, so I'm gonna do the same thing. But my bassline right now is just a starter. Put this in brown. And remember I told you we're starting from the main idea and then we're gonna roll over. So that's pretty much what I'm gonna do. But first off, I'm gonna come here and sort it out a little bit. So I'm gonna start at 9 till here, duplicate it, duplicate it, duplicate it, about until here. That's off. Okay, so hats from the beginning right here. So that's my first clip. Here we go. First it's gonna go like this. I'm gonna change the color to something paler because I don't see anything. And then the second clip, like that. So that's the full-on thing. Change it later, but it's a good starter. Okay, our track is sounding like that so far. It's really raw, really raw. There's so much work to be done, and you know, like in one session, it's a bit intense or insane. You know, can be a bit of both. To say that I'm gonna finish this. You have to bring it to a certain point so that the next time you pick up the project, you're gonna be ready to place it. So I want to at least have a structure, and with the structure, after that I can do the polishing or I can do the sound design. But we're gonna do a little bit of sound design just to make sure that I don't leave you on your appetite. I need to get back to my MIDI here, so I'm just gonna grab this and put it here. So we have the longer notes, which is it's the pad. Okay, cool. So that's one. I'm gonna add another MIDI. Go get operator again. Instruments. And mallets. I'm gonna go get another sequence. Faster ones. That's interesting. So I'm going to bring that here. That's a good, it's going to be a good complement from this. And now while we're at it, I'm just going to add a limiter. This is something I suggest you do. I tend sometimes, and you will too, if you spend a lot of time working on your track, your ears get used to what's going on. You might crank the volume, you might do crazy things, and what will happen is you will get in the red. And when you get in the red, sound is distorted, not good. So with a limiter, you know, you can remove it, and you should remove it before exporting your song for mixing or mastering or whatever. But you know, like when you produce, it's important to have a limiter. Another thing that I want to have in here is fab filter or an EQ, any EQ you like, but I really encourage you to get FabFilter 3. It's an amazing plugin, and any of the Pro Q is stellar in terms of quality. And why do I want it here is because I want to see like what's happening. And I find like the spectrometer from live is not as as precise as this. But if you just want to get the spectrometer, there's another plugin that I love, which is called Span. I don't think I have it installed, but it's by Voxengo. I mostly use this one, that's why I don't have Span, but you can get it for free on voxengo.com. It's a really handy plugin that will just show you the spectrum of your track. And in this case, we see that there's a lot of low end, but there's going to be some work to be done in the mids and highs, of course. So if I just play that again, definitely not loud enough, but that's okay. That's not a big problem. So I'm gonna add another one, a MIDI, and with this one I'm gonna duplicate this clip, and I'm gonna go get something else, maybe something faster or maybe random notes. And this time I'm gonna go get a synth that we haven't seen yet, which is the Melda power synth, which it has, I mean, it carries well its name. It's really powerful. It does what Operator does, but it's different presentation. I find that its power is where, like, you can randomize oscillators and you can get some really funky sound design out of it, while you can also just shape it the way you want. And the presets are great. And you know, one of the reasons why you want to have at least 1 or 2 synths that are VSTs and not from Ableton is because you don't want to use the same tones as everyone has. So if you have a synth made by Melda, they have a specific sound, just like Ableton has this specific sound. And you can kind of blur the lines on what you use exactly, and this one is a good example. Like it does a really fun job. So let's just put this in solo and play. It sounds like Ableton right now because it's just a sine wave. I'm just gonna randomize it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Gonna add a little bit of compression here so I can hear it better. That's even interesting. Kind of like it. Record this because there's potential. You can try the second one. Hit randomizing a few times and you get wacky stuff. Oh, that was a good one. Ah! Okay, let's pick another one. You see that when I'm hitting the effects, it's the same sound, but processed it becomes something completely different. And that's what I'm gonna do with all these sounds that I'm getting, is I'm gonna process everything with effects like that, and I'm gonna be collecting my favorite sounds of the result of this and then use that in the song. Okay, I don't want to get too lost because I can be doing this for the entire afternoon. And I think it's important that we do some assembling. So I'm gonna stop it here. Maybe just checking. I kind of like this. People that know me know that I'm really into bizarre music and that I like weirdness. And I was once asked, like, why do my music gets weirder and weirder as I grow. And it took me a little time to even understand why. But the thing is, when you have done music for over 10 years or 20 years, you get to a point where at first you do these really catchy melodies, you do these things that are fun or kind of like easy to understand. But then after years, you don't want to just repeat on and on and on what you've been doing that you know works, at least not for me. So I'll spend a lot more time exploring the other options that I haven't used yet. And of course that implies that I need to go into a road that is less used, which is sometimes more bizarre. And it gets bizarre because I want to explore and I don't want to repeat myself so much, although I am repeating myself. But you know, I don't want to make pure noise either. That is not interesting to me. So I'm at least trying to pick some ideas and remain open to just have them be very strange. I believe I have enough. Even more than enough. And you know what's important at this point? Saving the project. I should have done that way before. But I'm gonna be recording this. And you know, this sounds like maybe a funny question, but how do I name a project? You know, some people call it new project one, and then years down the road, new project one has been released and is known under carpet something, magic carpet. So how do you find your project? Originally it was named project one. So I think, you know, like a good standard of naming your songs is putting at least a date or kind of a rough moment of when it was recorded. So I usually go with fall in 2019. It gives me a rougher idea. And I'm going to say that it was like a more techno track and 124 BPM. That way, sometimes what happens is I will open project and I'll be like, oh, today I feel like doing tech house, or today I feel like doing dubby. So I'll go with techno. I will rename it later maybe, but that's a good standard point to start with, is to record it with something that's going to be memorable. If not memorable, well, at least it gives a bit of insight of what's inside the project if I open it. And that's kind of crucial. So now we have like so much material. So how do we get started? We know this is interesting, so I'm gonna kind of copy this here. Power synth is gonna go off, and this one is oh yeah, I want to add percussion. instrument, drum rack. Get the clap. That'll do. There we go. And yeah, simple. Just one clap. I know I think I want it until the very end, and when I work on my arrangements, I will remove it. I find that when you do an arrangement, it's easier to just copy and paste it until the end. And after that, when you say, okay, I don't want it to play, you come zoom in and then you remove it like that. And then there's a pause. It's easier to kind of see what's going on. And then you can always refer to your markers on something is going to happen there. So that will be a bit of a guideline, but first of all, you know, like stuff that's going to be there the entire track, I copy it until the very end. So even these guys, I'm just going to copy and paste it like this for the moment. I have one variation here, which is like the simple hats that I can bring back in here. And these will also be changing. So I'm going to be altering like maybe this sequence here. I want to have like maybe another hat that supports. So there's multiple ways to do this. But for the clap, I want to start this way and, you know, it's simple. See, his hats are lower in the volume, so I'm going to drop it. I'm going to put the volume of roughly like mine. Okay, so it's going all the way up. Let's check his my clap is slightly louder. You know, there's a lot of saying, people are saying, oh, you should be mixing while you're producing, da 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 da. Yeah, right, but you kind of want to have your levels a little bit similar than your reference track. It gives you kind of a model to follow. You know that the reference track will work, so therefore if you kind of nail it with yours, then it will work as well. One thing I want to check is the MIDI that we recorded earlier. I think there's parts in there that could be used as a bass line. So in Operator, I'm just going to remove this, and I'm going to duplicate this and bring it here. So that could be supporting. Bassline, I wanted to keep it kind of short. That's a bit off. I can search like that until I find something I like. A bit off. Can put myself in 116, quantize it to current grid, but yeah, current grid is good because it goes with it, and I'm on 100%. And that's already a bit more interesting than this. So I'm just gonna sign. I might change it later, but I find that this is more engaging, and if I drop it after the break here, change the color. That's a good progression in the bass. So it starts, track sounds a little bit simpler, and then it gets a bit more evolved, and then the bass will go with this. I'm gonna check a little bit later, like how all the notes here are working together. But you know, that's gonna be very interesting to chop and then play with this. You know, like there's kind of a pattern here, and you know, what I like is the call and answer. Sometimes I want the bass to be talking to one of the sounds, so it's going to be interesting to decide, okay, this note answers to this one, so I might shift the whole pattern so that it call and answer with this one. So we'll see about that. So these two are synths. I'm going to put that in blue. Those are my codes. I encourage you to find your own color codes. But you see, if you keep colors, you know what's going on here. So now I'm gonna come here, and that's gonna be like the, I mean, it can be long, but I'm just gonna go in there and quickly hunt the sounds that I really like. So I'm gonna come here. That's interesting. There's something with that. I'm not sure yet what, but I'm just gonna like this. There's definitely this, I'm not sure. No. That's reminds me a bit of like Pearl on, a bit weird vibe. It works, but it's a bit bizarre. So that could be very interesting to explore with this. I'm gonna check here. That I know I don't like. There's very deep basses in here. It's kind of... I'm not sure about that, but let's see with a kick. That's interesting. It sounds a bit like a phone, but I like it. It's fun. Interesting texture. This, I remember, was some interesting part here. I'm gonna do a test where I'm gonna loop this and pitch it down. Oh yeah, I completely forgot about this. This. Okay, I'm gonna come here. So that's cool. It's really, I'm gonna check a few sounds to see. That was interesting. Something in there as well. Not sure. That's trippy. It's important to do a test of pitch because a sound at this pitch might not be interesting, so I would suggest you go in hidden melodies sometimes. And remember at the beginning I was saying like it's important to remain open. Sometimes just like playing with these sounds, I might come up with a new idea that has nothing to do with what I started with, which is the pads and the melodies. And then if that happens, there's two options. Either I save this and then I do a save as with a new idea and I start either from scratch or I remove the pads. But I don't want to discard the pads because the pads might be what I need later on in another project. And I would like to have the option of going back and find and just fetch that and just place it in something that needs a melody. And in here, I'm doing something. In other words, don't discard anything and don't stop yourself from starting a new project all over again. There's no issues. So whenever some people are saying like, oh, I'm stuck in a loop, you know, if you're stuck in a loop, it's because you're thinking too much in terms like starting a song from beginning to the end. And your loop should be stretched all the way here, and then after that you put your ideas. So if you're open with your ideas, you can explore different options, and then you can explore different options here and see what that leads to. So I'm going to add another audio here. I'm going to put it in blue, and these two are going to be exploration and arrangement with these loops here. I'm going to bring that over here. And now we're gonna do something that is I find extremely nerdy, and I'm gonna loop this part put the kick on so I kind of have feeling of the groove. And I'm gonna be like, what do I love in there? Like, what's like worthy of a song? And sometimes there's nothing, but sometimes like this part, I don't think I want to keep it, but that could be a percussion. So, you know, when I put shape this like that. It's like a little one tone hit. Could be interesting. The same thing for this guy. Cool. Just won't need. Stone I don't like. I don't like. Don't like. Maybe. This is... could be. Bring it back here. Part of the sound design is just about checking the sounds and then we're going to layer them. Okay, that's like getting on my nerve. It's just not a good idea. And not a good sign. There's a tone, there's a texture in here that I like. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it on side on another channel. Okay, we're done with this one. Next one. This is a super good example, this one, of call and answer. That could be a call, and then this is the answer. So then I would... I like the second part, so I'm just gonna do this. I like this. That as like, for me, as a, could be a strong idea for my song. It's just this. I that's how I feel. So I'm gonna bring this in here for the moment. Add another one. And I was saying there was something in here that I like. I'm just gonna explore. So this is really intense, and I'm gonna put the EQ8. See, this is huge. I'm gonna cut it really drastically. Don't like the ending. That's a nice texture right there. And if I like this, just want to make sure first of all I have nothing else. I can just freeze it and then flatten, and then I have a sound, which is a little texture. Okay, back to here. That, I don't know why, I really like it. So I'm gonna drag this. Not sure I like the ending, but I like the first part. That's interesting. It's telephone like. It's really bizarre. That's like a bass line right there. Remove this part. Okay, so maybe you're wondering, like, okay, am I gonna ever make a song with that? I think it's more important to spend time getting lost in sound design and editing the sounds than being obsessed about making a song out of that. I mean, I can finish a song really quickly if I use tons of presets and I just use most generic sounds, but that's not going to be satisfying for me. I'd rather have like a long session of sound exploration, and then eventually I will nail the kind of mood that I want. But we're getting there. We're getting there. The stuff that is obviously not working at all. Okay, I remember this. That was very interesting. That's really, it's like sounds that I have never really heard before. That's kind of what I'm after. That's just too bizarre. It's too bizarre. That's interesting. There's something in here that I like. Put it here. Almost. Nah. Although there's like it could be maybe here, and there's like there's an option that is really nice in Ableton, which is the preserve transient. You switch a direction and then you roll that down, and then you're going to have percussive elements. Roll it really. And what I do is if I put myself here in 16, then I see like this one actually works there, but I'm gonna try to line it up. And now you saw just taking form, it's becoming a groove, and that's where it gets interesting. This is unarranged. Now if I just loop this, we'll carve this into a groove again. I like to come here. Oh, this one is just tiny off, so I'm gonna pull it. I kind of like it.